There's something to that, right? Of like, when do you need a template and when should you not use
The perfect example is actually like TurboTax. Oh my god, you don't even know what you fill out. It's so templatized, so easy.
On this podcast, I think that somebody's been using a little Canva.
Oh, I do. And with that being said, you need to know a lot of things to be dangerous. And that's basically what we're talking about in this episode of the Infinite Creative Podcast.
Oh man, someone's using Canva. I can smell it. Can everyone out there, can you smell it? Someone in this podcast has been using Canva recently.
Yes, I have, and now I feel like I need to do a whole episode about it. No, not a whole episode, but we talked about it so often. You were like offended, you were in disgrace, but you also admired it a little bit. And I was like, I kind of need like a pricing sheet for my services. I'm like, let's check this Canva thing out. And I did that 2 days ago, and I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, that was literally my thought. I'm like, oh my God, all those real estate agents are using this stuff. And I'm just like, whoa. And then there's menus, there's everything, and you just click on it and you can change the design. And I think it's free. I still have not figured it out because they have a free trial, and I think they have different price points, but yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think about Canva, Sean?
I have a tumultuous past with this Canva. It's been interesting to see it grow over the years. I've checked it out recently. I've kind of done a deep dive on my own about it recently, and it's different than how I remember it. But there's still lots of templates, which to a creative that loses work to these templates, it definitely can get a little frustrating. But it's interesting. I will say this, that it's kind of become a good design tool. I'll say that. I'll give it that. It's like a good design tool. Like you can actually design stuff from scratch with it, and it works fairly well. But I think the coolest part about it that I like is that the systems. It has like brand systems, which is cool. So you can actually like have a team. Like we have the Infinite Creative Podcast. We could have a brand asset library, color libraries, things that could all kind of live in one place then, and we would be collaborating on it together. I think that's kind of a cool part of Canva, is you could have parts of a team all kind of touch the creative stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, with that being said, that's like kind of like a new thing. All those new tools that are popping up, they are either very shallow, and you really reach like the full capacity and functionality really quickly, and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this and this and this. And some of the tools are like so deep that it's like intimidating, what is like kind of annoying. But yeah, so it's like, but Canva was like, I signed up with my account, clicked on a couple things, and I'm like, oh, I get the hang of it like really easy. Obviously, I did not experiment with like the feature that you just mentioned, but that is like a good thing because that gives you trust in like, oh, it makes sense to invest in the product if there's more to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess, what was your first... it's kind of interesting. It sounds like you've never really played with Canva, which is surprising to me. It's been around for a while now, like 7-8 years now. So
Damn.
I mean, so why have you not, I guess? What's held you back from trying it? I know you've known about it.
Yeah, so first off, I did everything in Photoshop, like old school, and then you hear like from people like you, like, oh, you should do this, you should design this, and there's like stereotypes, and we all hear in our environment certain things, and then you go with the stereotypes, and you're just like, okay, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, I'm just like, oh, but I also cannot afford like a graphic designer on the other hand, And now after seeing Canva, I'm like, oh, all those real estate agents, freshly listed, freshly sold, they have their templates and then they post on Instagram. I'm like, oh, they didn't design it themselves. They just had a template and they just uploaded the images. And I'm like, God damn. And here's me doing everything from scratch and basically being slower. And yeah, what is like,
and there's something to that, right? Of like, when do you need a template and when should you not use a template? And it's very interesting because me as a designer, I know when there's templates, right? Because I see all this stuff. So I know a Canva template and I know a Squarespace when I see it, and I know I can see the templates. But do the customers see the templates? I guess that's the real question, right? If I'm a realtor, does Joe Schmo plumber down the street, is he going to look at my thing and be like, oh, that was made on Canva, this sucks? Like, probably not. He's just going to see an ad. He's just going to see the thing. So, so it's that's a thing for those people.
Yeah, but that is also like hitting the point, where it's like the pain point of like Canva and all that other stuff. There's templates. Somebody else used it. It's like when girls have the same hair color, and it's like, oh, you just colored your hair, because I did, and now it's like you're copying me, and now you're like, yeah, you don't want to do that because somebody else did it, and that is like the bad flavor of like templates. You want to have that uniqueness, but it is so expensive nowadays, and not easy to get something unique.
It's true, especially when you have things that are kind of low-hit marketing things, right? Like if you're putting out social media posts, right, that are maybe only going to get a few likes or something, or you put out something that's not going to really get a sale, it's hard for them to defend, I got to pay Fitz and Sean all this money for like a post that may not do anything. It may not produce anything. So that's where Canva does come in, at least for the lighter touch points. Right now, what's interesting is you go into Canva though, and it's not just lighter touch points; it's everything now. They're really trying to do almost every single thing that you would need a creative to do. There's a couple things that I like about Canva. I'll start off the bat is I do love how their interface in terms of templatizing things, right? Like Instagram blog post versus Instagram story versus, and it's just a button click, right? Where you and I, we know this in terms of templates, right? Like I could create Photoshop templates, so I could say, start file from template. So you could have the same type of thing, but I do love how out of the box Canva just has these nice buttons that are
very
pretty easy
accessible.
to understand. Yeah, and so it's nice for someone that's like, I'm working in an office, we just started, and now my boss just ran in and said I need to create a flyer for whatever. So it is good for that, right? Because then, what is the alternative? Now I got to find a designer. I don't know any designers, or I got to find someone, and then they're going to want like $300 for this one flyer.
Negotiations, another pain point, touching point, and all that friction that you kind of don't want, because it's just a social media post, Yeah,
and it's that value. It's that value, and so it's we value our work very highly, right? So we're always talking in the show. Don't do something unless it's valuable for you, and so that's the problem is when they're like, well, Fitz, I just need this throwaway social media post. Then you're already saying like, okay, well, my minimum value is like, let's say $200, and they're like, well, that's not what this post is worth. It's not worth $200.
Yeah. Yeah, with that being said, I had like negotiations. I can't talk anymore. I talk too much. Basically, yesterday I had a conversation with somebody who is like, okay, I want to have like a 2-minute edit, and then I want to have reels and like pricing per video, and then like breaking down reels again. So there's the 2-minute edit that had the set mount, and then it's like, what would you charge for a reels? Like really low effort, because like, obviously they don't matter as much, but they can maybe get a lot of results, So it's like, it is so bad, breaking everything down, because after you broke it to a certain degree down, it's like when you order at a restaurant an item, like let's say it's a sandwich, and you add like something on the side. And then you don't order the bread, but you order all the sides, and now all the sides are cheaper than the whole the whole bread itself. And sometimes that happens if you do the pricing wrong, when you break everything down and you didn't really thought about it. But now if you order everything separately, it's cheaper. Why would you order it as a package? And it's like, I have not thought about like what happens, with that type of pricing. And I basically got caught off guard, what was very annoying.
Okay, so it was like an a la carte type of thing where they were able to just pick one thing here, one thing there, or pick things.
Yeah, we started with like, okay, I just want to have a set budget and you get X amount of videos. Then it evolved to like, I want to pay per video. And then it's like, okay, no problem. And then she was like saying like, okay, we got to, instead of like per video, I also want to have reels as well, because they have a different time frame, it's a different style of editing too. I'm just like, they maybe get even more results, but I cannot price them now cheaper, even though they're, less work. And I'm just like, how do I price this? And I'm like, I couldn't really give a good answer, because like, I usually don't like doing that because it's too complicated in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing that we have to do a lot in our world is you have to come up with packages and think of things as campaigns, right? So I even know when I do email stuff, it's hard for me to be like one newsletter will cost this much money, this one post will cost this much money. Where it's like it almost has to be like I'll do this amount generally in this area. It's going to cost this much money for this campaign.
Yeah.
And so Canva's, and so Canva's a very interesting tool for me where I definitely was very resistant at the beginning, right? Because the way that it was even marketed at the beginning was like, be a creative without being a creative type of thing. Like you don't really need a creative. You can do it yourself. You're all creative. Everyone's creative. Everyone's taken design classes in college and gotten yelled at, I guess. And so... at the beginning, I was definitely a little hesitant against it, just because in the branding itself, it just kind of took this position of like, you don't really need to pay for a fancy creative; you can do it yourself. And and at the beginning, it was mostly templates. I feel like I will say they're getting better now to becoming a tool, an actual just different tool. And I will say that there's even things that it does as a tool better than Adobe, that I'm surprised Adobe doesn't start to steal a little bit of. Simple things like if you have like a shape, you can just drag a photo over that shape and hold 1 second, and now it's clipped into the shape, where Adobe doesn't even do that. You still have to do like a shortcut to get that to happen and stuff like that. So, so it's like a better usable tool, I'll say that, but it's interesting. It's like the conversation we have about AI. It can either be a tool or a crutch. And I think the thing that makes me unhappy about Canva is the crutch. Yeah. When it's like, I'm not trying to make something better or cool or unique. I'm just trying to get by. And that's where I get really annoyed by it, where it's like, we're just going to have cheap visual work then. It's all going to start to look the same if everyone just does the exact same templates.
Yeah, but I also think like it's very important because like, back in the day when the first smartphones came out, or the first phones in general, you had that T9 typing, one number is like 4 letters or whatever, and it was really painful to learn how to do it. And there was a curve to it, the learning curve was always like high, and now it's like quick and easy, plug and go, and everything, the more plug and go it is, the more quickly it gets adapted, and it's the new thing. And it seems like everything that's complicated has a lot of features, but it's just so painful to learn. But I also think we should throw Canva onto the screen, or how about that?
Yeah, sure, why not? Show it.
So let's see, window, Canva, here we go. And it should do it now, or does it? Share. There we go. I think so. Where's me?
Here you are. It's there. I can see it.
You can see it? That's great. I don't see it. There we go. Now I see it. Yeah, I basically have to look to the right. But what I really liked was the flyers, for example, because there's if you have a pricing guide or stuff like that, or a menu item, this is so powerful. And then you can go through the templates, what they have, price list. This is obviously looking a little bit dorky in my eyes, but they have for everything. This is a nice wedding price list, kind of sort of, if you would modify it. But you can click on all the little details, what I really, really like, Yeah.
It's I'm trying to think how to say this best. What's cool about Canva too, that I will say, is that the layouts, right? I do see this as a cool thing that, let's say you're kind of like Sean, where you're like, well, I like to use my old tools. I like to do it the old school way. You could still use Canva, at least for inspiration. It is kind of an interesting thing to jump in and be like, well, if I was going to make a custom-made real estate thing, why not jump into Canva and at least see, how are they doing this, right? So they have a big photo at top and 3 smaller photos, or they're stacking it. So it's at least a good spot to get inspiration quickly, where you're just are just scrolling down, and just getting all this inspiration. Where usually, you have to go to Google, Dribbble, Behance, one of those sites. But going to this is interesting, where I could just go and be like, what does a real estate flyer look like? And on the left in that column, I'm going to get a good idea pretty quickly of some ideas.
And I got, for myself, I got really inspired. And I'm like, okay, let's say I make a treatment plan or a proposal to a client. And if I do a proposal, anything from that is better than my text message, You know, my text message would be probably like not as nice as something like that if I email a quick thing like this, you know, like, oh, here, video proposal being on social media, first page for this phrase, you know, or I offer a cinematic ad and then I put some nice photos of me there. Never thought about that, but I basically got inspired by those real estate agents because they using all those tools, you know, that are freely available nowadays to their full advantage. They're using the smartphones instead of the professional camera and the videographer. They're just doing everything themselves. And I'm like, I'm doing only half of that myself. And I'm like, that's bad. You know, I'm feeling like I could have used it, like you said, 7 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I know I sound very strained when I'm saying that, yeah, you should have, yeah, I should be too, because
Should've,
it's like, yeah,
could've.
for like when there's things where you're like it needs to be perfect but then it never gets done, then yeah, you should have just used Canva, right?
Yeah.
But there is things that I would argue that, like, I just, you know, I feel like we can't become these shallow creative thinkers that we're just like, it's AI or Canva. Why would I ever even get a piece of paper and pencil out? That's so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
I just never want to get to that type of thinking where I'm like, I never want to be creative thinking. I'm just like, why would I just not go to the templates? Where so yeah, in terms of things like, you know, things that we just don't have time to do, it's either not going to get done or we'd use Canva. Then yeah, I think you should have just used Canva, right? Because there's lots of stuff that didn't get done over the years. You didn't have like a capabilities sheet that you just talked about where you could hand out to people. There's plenty of items that you probably didn't do over the years that you could have just used Canva in like 5 minutes and slapped it together and threw it out.
What is like, I think it goes back to being open-minded, you know, because like you're right, you should be able to be like do it yourself, because that is like the best skill to have, having a good taste, having a good skill set, you know, and then obviously getting it done. But sometimes we obviously don't either have the time, the budget, or like the knowledge, you know, and it's like then it could help.
Oh yeah, and exactly, and you know, and for all startups out there, I get it. You can't really afford creatives. I get that. I mean, it's like, you know, can I afford like professional services as well? Like, can I have a business coach? Right, those are expensive. Like, why don't you just get a business coach, Sean? You're just looking at YouTube videos. So it's the same thing, right? It's this kind of thing of like, you know, can we be mad at people for not having money? No. Are most new business owners not going to have money? Probably not. And so, you know, us as creatives, you know, these types of tools are hard because are they taking away money that we would maybe get? Sure. However, is that money we should have been going after anyway, right? Because let's get back to the meat and potatoes of this. How much were you going to charge for that one story? How much are you going to charge for that one real estate flyer?
Yeah.
You know, maybe you'd charge a lot, maybe, but you'd have to really defend that cost to someone, you know, and so, you know, I like right now I'm working with two real estate people where they're selling luxury homes. They're willing to pay me decent money to make their business cards because they need something that's custom. It's not something you can go on Canva for. They need to be custom and amazing. And there's all these little intricate things that are within the cards that there's no way they could get on Canva. And even like we're going to do it in this crazy way where we're going to do a letterpress where it's going to be embossed, debossed, foil stamping. You couldn't output those files from Canva. So to do kind of that next level, you can't really do with Canva still. So there's still those people, and I think us as creatives, we need to go for those people, the people that want the next level, right? We shouldn't have to fight in the mud for like the small little thing that Canva can do.
It's also like kind of like an inflation thing in a weird way, if that makes sense, you know? Nowadays, it doesn't really make sense to take any, let's say, creative work on that is let's say really low level, $100, you know, anything for $100, you know, you have to get it done in an hour or so, or 2 hours. And even then that ain't happening, you know. Let's say you make the flyer, it's probably you want to make at least $150 or $200, you know, and like, is it really worth it? And that's like, it is so weird, you know, because back in the day, a flyer would have made you millions of dollars, not millions, maybe millions, depending, you know. It could make you millions of dollars, theoretically.
But yeah, like, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's plenty of creatives that have made tons of money doing the things that Canva now, you know, purports to do. I mean, there's whole design agencies that they just do real estate, for example. We're a real estate design agency, so that's all they do all day is make those flyers and stuff for real estate people, and so they probably look at something like that, and they're probably like, dang, that's business we could get. That's business that we could get from these people. I think it comes back to the old argument, though. Even Canva, with how easy it is, it still takes time. You still have to log in. You still have to get in there. You still have to find the photos and the stuff. And for some people, that still may be too annoying. For some clients, that may be still too much work, even if it's an easy tool.
Yeah.
And so who knows? This may be just another example that we need to get this into our workflows then, right? So maybe you can sell the $100 flyer, but then you use Canva. And I know that sounds, even me saying that as some guy that went to art school, still paying his art school debt, someone that loves going to museums, loves reading design books. I'm surrounded by design books in here, someone like that, it hurts to say that. Well, just go to Canva then so you can make your $100. But obviously that's up to you and the people out there that are listening. Are you going to make your entire career off of being a Canva designer? Or are you going to maybe just use it as maybe to fill in the space, right? Maybe there's some space in your workflow that it could help. It's $120 a year for Canva Pro. I would say for people, if you are premium, I should say, I think it's Pro or Premium, it's one of the two, but
Premium.
I forget which one it is, but if you use Canva often, I would suggest using that. A lot of their cool stuff is definitely behind that kind of paywall. But what's really cool then is you get access to such cool assets. I mean, the stock photos, the fact that it has the background remover like a lot of things have, it has so much stuff in it that if you're willing to pay the extra money, it has a lot of assets in it. It has a lot of stuff that you can use. So if you're a brand new designer and the $60 a month for the Adobe package is a little too much, then the $120 a year for Canva may be more up your alley, because now you're talking $10 a month.
Yeah. I also had an interesting thought because we talked about the $150 flyer or the $100 flyer, or that could be a $100 photo shoot or a $250 music video or whatever it is, that's very low numbers. And like we said, for the inflation, it's not really doable, but it's doable if you do it on volume, and then you really have to have a set system in place, and everything has to be well defined, because it doesn't really hurt if you do $100 or $150 flyers in 2 hours, or 3 hours, and you do 10, 20 a day, or 20 a month, then it's still fine, but if you only do one and then it's impacting a different gig, and whatever you do is not systemized, then it's really painful, I think, if that makes sense. But yeah, so it's not as simple where it's I only do Canva now, but you could do that in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think if I was a young designer and I didn't have a lot of money, which I didn't when I was a young designer, I didn't have my own Apple. I didn't buy my own Apple until I was 2 years into college, So I'm thinking of young Sean. A thing like Canva may be kind of an amazing gateway drug, if you will, to the creative world. So in that way, I like it. That it's this free way to start doing stuff, to start calling yourself a designer. Look, Mom, I put something on a coffee mug. Look, Mom, I made a flyer. So I think in that way, these tools are cool. That's the cool part of the democratization of all the creative tools is young creatives are seeing less and less of a barrier to become creative. People without little money, because that's the thing, is it just like most things, it was a rich man's game back in the day. Back when a logo did get you millions of dollars, it cost a lot of money to become a logo designer. You had to go to fancy colleges and know fancy people to be a logo designer. Where now the bar's a lot lower to get in, which is good.
Okay, so with that being said, what do you need to know to be the graphic designer? What do you need to know to be, how much you need to know to be dangerous, basically?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, exactly. So I think to become a graphic designer, to start calling yourself a graphic designer, I think you have to. Well, at first you have to have the love for it. I mean, it seems like an obvious thing to say, but you have to be in love with this stuff. I think that's one thing that if you start to use Canva and you start to use these tools and you're not falling in love with the process of it, then I wouldn't start calling yourself a designer. You have to really get passionate about the layout, the space, what is this communicating, and things like that. But
I get that. That makes a lot of sense, because in the videography world, there's people who are hyper focusing, they're taking pride. They're getting into I need to have this camera and I need to have the settings in this way. So I get a little bit, just a tiny smidge more perfection out of it. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's and if they love that, I guess if they're really getting passionate about the perfection, sure. But it's you definitely have to define it early, right? Or you're wasting your time. So if you're getting on Canva and you're like, yeah, I guess I'm a designer, I feel cool, I feel trendy, but I'm not like in love with what I'm making, then yeah, be like recognize that. But yeah, in terms of like, knowing enough to be dangerous, it's something that like we all kind of run into, right? Like to get into any new career, we have to start to kind of learn enough to get our foot in the middle of it, right? So for designers, I think, something like Canva is interesting because now you're at least getting your foot in it, right? Because especially if you're promising something to someone. So let's say you're in high school and you promise something to your uncle for his whatever, and you go into Canva and make it. You are knowing enough to be dangerous now. Now you are making a flyer for a real business that will have real results, either good or bad. Yeah. So it's cool because there is that knowing enough to be dangerous and that kind of transferring into that zone.
And there's like levels to the knowledge, let's say, because like, making a flyer maybe be really important, and the value of that knowledge, just getting the flyer, for example, we're kind of hung up on that one now, but it is really important, to have that knowledge, and some knowledge is more important than others because like you maybe know this and that maybe helps you close 1 to 5% more of your deals, but you need to at least close like that critical mass where it's like, oh yeah, I can do this and I can do that, I can make a walkthrough for a real estate building, I can do like a quick video, highlight video, and all you really need to do is like learn to edit a highlight video of an event, and then you can do like event videography basically, and you're dangerous now.
Yeah. I think, and so a lot of our clients, they'll sometimes know enough to be dangerous too. And that gets kind of tough, right? So like, so I have clients sometimes that I'm handing websites off to, and they actually know a decent amount about the tools that I'm using, which is sometimes really weird. You'll be surprised. It won't even be a web designer. It'll be like some admin person, and they'll be like, oh, I know WordPress. I understand Elementor. Yeah, I've done that before. Oh, is that just this? And you're like okay.
Yeah.
and I have to have this talk with them that I'm like, okay, you feel like you know all these things, that you can hang and you can roll with it, but just know that now you know enough to put your hands in it and blow it up. And like as a web designer, I will tell you that even I put my hands into things and they've blown up. So be careful, because that's the other side of like knowing enough to be dangerous. There's knowing enough to be dangerous in terms of like now you're competitive maybe, and now you're dangerous in terms of like, oh yeah, he's actually in the game. But then there's knowing enough to be dangerous in terms of like you think you know it all, but you don't, and then you can blow stuff up because you're getting in the mix now. You're part of the game. I sometimes have to remind people that, where I'm like, you're the one that called yourself this thing. You're the designer, remember? So now you got to stick with it. Like that's the responsibility now.
Yeah, it's like taking ownership over the work, because on the one side, you're not the graphic designer, but now you're giving the graphic designer input on what the graphic designer shall do, and you're just acting like, no, this is not looking good. But you gave the briefing to the graphic designer. Graphic designer was executing on the briefing you gave him. So I think it's probably really decent from a graphic design point, and you as admin, it might be not the thing what you think it is, because like they can mess it up just with like a simple decision. I don't like the colors, make it green, and it couldn't be green for whatever reason.
Right, yeah, and there's so much thinking that's involved, and us as creatives, we're gonna have to defend that value so much going forward. It's incredible that like. So when you have someone that that knows enough to be dangerous, and they're like, I actually think the primary color should be green because that's my favorite color. Where you as a creative need to be but is that your audience's favorite color? And did you know that green actually represents this and this historically? So are you sure you want to do that? So it's like you're the one that's supposed to be like, that's a great idea, but like, let me tell you why we should do a different thing though. That's kind of our role.
I like how you sugarcoated that.
It's a great idea, but it's terrible. With things like Canva, it can be tough because when you run into a client that's like, well, I've just been using Canva all this time, so I've been designing all of our stuff, so they kind of, it's interesting because you come in, and I have felt that energy of they're like, yeah, well, what can you do? I did it all myself while running the company. And it's like this funny, like you have to prove yourself in this weird way. And it's really interesting because when you look at their stuff, obviously I'll sugarcoat. I'll be like, oh, this looks nice. You've done some stuff. I understand that you have a good eye for fonts. I can see that you have a good eye for color. But then I can start to bring things up of like, well, the hierarchy of elements isn't working here. And then what is the point of this? What is the call to action of this? And you can, if you're someone that's seasoned, you can very quickly show your value even in those moments of just being like, this may look well and good, but let's zoom out. Why are you even doing this? Like, what's this campaign even for? And so... But yeah, so like things like Canva, it's interesting because I think I've gotten less grumpy about it over the years. Just like things like Squarespace when it first came out, I've gotten less and less grumpy over that over the years. Because I think overall, there's no right tool. It's not like Adobe is the only way, or these more complicated ways of doing things are the only way of doing things. It's not that at all. I think it's really like we have to just find what tools work. And just know that creativity is being democratized, and that's good and it's bad, but we just have to be ready. It's just going to keep us honest. You have to keep honest now. You cannot be lying to your clients. You can't be like making this fake value that doesn't exist because they're smart now. They're smartening up.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, you're right with that. And it's also like a no, because like the value is there. It's like, when you have that flyer that you designed in Canva and now you're going to a big company and they're putting that flyer into like 200,000 households, the little things matter now more than the flyer that gets put as an upload onto IG as a story and will be seen by 200 people. The value, the distribution of like the weight shifts immensely in a way, where the admin who thinks like, I did a lot of, this in like Canva on my other accounts, and now the big company wants to put 300,000 flyers out and they're expecting a certain percentage of like callbacks of like, hey, I would like to buy your house, and now you don't meet the percentage and you don't know why. That could be the Achilles in that sense, if that makes sense. Even though you're like, you as a client, you're now more dangerous, but on volume and at scale, you're basically messing up and not knowing you're messing up because you don't know the details.
Yeah. It goes back to you don't know what you don't know. That design isn't just placing elements on a page. And that, if you go to Pinterest and you go to places for inspiration and you're like, oh, okay, this is what people do for flyers, and we've all been there. Yet again, I'm not trying to say that I never do these things. I do. I think like creatives are definitely taught to, to steal for sure.
Yeah.
And we all do. I think everyone does, even if they don't realize that they do it. But, I think that can be a problem too. I've seen so many clients that are like, I just went on Pinterest and I found a style I liked and now I'm doing that style. And it's like, yet again, though, like, is this what your audience wants? What story is this telling about your brand? There's so much that people don't really realize that this is its own following, is its own huge following. And so it's the same thing you're seeing all over the place. So another place that exists outside of our career is Honeybooks, right? Where I'm an accountant or I'm a business planner and I'm like, but Fitz, why don't you use me? And you're like, well, I could do it all myself, right? They gave me templates. They have a step-by-step process. Why would I ever hire you? But that guy may know some stuff that Honeybooks isn't telling you and be like, well, yeah, but you shouldn't even be doing that, Fitz. You should zoom out and do this other thing. But you wouldn't know that. You're already going down a path in Honeybooks. And so...
The perfect example is actually like TurboTax. Oh my God, you don't even know what you fill out. It's so templatized, so easy. They don't tell you like the boring information that is crucial, What type of taxes did you file now for your business? There's like, were you self-employed or not, You don't even know if you file like for your, W-2, 1099 or whatever. They just like ask you so simple questions that you don't even know what you're doing. And you don't know what you're doing wrong until somebody knocks on your door and being like, hey, how's it going?
But yeah, exactly. And context is everything. So even my accountant, he asks great questions of like, are you planning on making more money next year than this year? Because we can always push the taxes to next year. And just all these things that TurboTax isn't going to ask you. It's not going to ask you all these contextual questions. It's just like, let's move you through the process. Let's get you to the end quickly.
Get the add-on. Don't forget to get the add-on.
That's basically Same with Canva. I mean, like Canva as a print designer, I'm not sure how it is now, but when I was in the print world a lot more, I would get sent these files from Canva that were not usable. They would be breaking in the printer. They would have all these errors. And then it's funny because if there was an error, I would ask them, okay, can you correct this in Canva? And they'd be like, I can't. I don't know what's going on. I'd be like, no, the color, so something in the colors is broken. So here, if you can go to the document setup and go ahead and change the color profile, they're like, color profiles? Canva doesn't let me change the color profiles. And I'm like, well, then you're screwed. I don't know. Now you got to give it to me, and I have to like take a screenshot, flatten it in Photoshop, and that's what we're printing. Yeah. And so there's things like that where there's like, do you need all the complexity if you're like the front desk of a dentist company? Probably not. But, you know, I think it's almost like a mix. If you're a new business, I would say get a creative person in your sphere. Get a Sean or a Fitze or somebody. And then, you know, even when you try to do a lot of stuff on yourself, try to give them the work that's scary, or at least have them double check stuff once in a while.
Yeah, I think that is like very powerful because, like, with that being said, obviously it makes no sense. If you're like one person, you're barely making enough money to pay yourself, and then like, let's hire this person, let's hire that person, you know, like there's like an order, steps by step, you know, and then you can add all those features on, but you gotta have like the basics so you can keep on doing your thing in a way. But you have to be self-aware that you're not the graphic designer, you're not the videographer, you're like the consumer nowadays with all that knowledge because you saw everybody posting videos, so you have a good taste of good videos, you know what it should look like, you know. But if you cook it, you think it tastes good, somebody else will still say this is kind of salty, you know, but you will think like it's great, you know. But you have to be aware of like your opinion maybe be like, you know, tainted in a way.
Yeah. It's true, and honestly, all of ours are. You know, even as a creative, you realize that your stuff is tainted too. And so, so it's tough. It's if we get caught in these places. The same thing with AI, right? If we get stuck in this kind of silo of thinking, then you're going to miss stuff. There's no way you could know everything. There's no way you're just a master. I always have to explain this to people. We live in such a funny time. It's an amazing time technologically when we could just say we're masters now. We're just like, oh, I just learned this thing. I've spent a whole week learning it. I'm a master now. I made a whole course. I'm selling a whole course on it now. I'm a master. And it's like, why? You haven't done anything though. You haven't, right? You're a master now. You wrote a book.
We're 10,000 hours. You know,
I wrote a book. I told AI to write the rest of it. It did. It's selling. I'm self-publishing on Amazon. It's just like this kind of, I don't know. It's really weird. It's like, you know, like Socrates would be so mad. Plato would be so mad of like, dude, I had to work so hard to be the top dog, and now you're just like, I'm the master. 21 years old. I'm the master.
But I think it's the inflation of mastery, you know, because like everything got cheaper. Like, you know, everything got cheaper. Everything is like easier. Everybody knows everything now. But the tiny percentages that you don't know, that is now the mastery, you know? Where masters back in the day, like if they maybe slipped on like 1 or 2%, didn't really matter that much, you know? But now everybody's at 90%. And if you want to be a master nowadays, you have to be at 99% of the skill level. But if you need to know all the details and you have to have like, you know, but you don't see the difference from the outside because the 90 looks like the 99 in a way, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's like like you see in like in the Olympics and stuff, right? Like the top time is always like this tiny little bit more, tiny bit better. Like if you look at any graph at like the fastest 400 meter dashes or something in Olympic history, it's like this big quick rise and then whoop, just like flattens out. And we're like in this place where we're kind of like, dang, like the average person can do so much more than they could 10, 20 years ago. Like, you know, I kind of do get sad sometimes. I do, where I wish I was like coming up as a designer in the 90s. I feel like that was a great spot where you still had software, but like it would have, there was no AI, there was no real templatized thing like Canva. You could still charge a ton of money for like a brochure. I could be like $1,000 to design a little brochure, you know, and those things still do exist. And I still do charge some money for some stuff, but it's like, I do feel that new businesses, like they're so hard to work with because they have no money, and even for them to work with you took so much convincing because they just have no money. I've had some clients like where it's like awkward, where they run out of money in the middle of the process, and I have to like try to find a way to like end it in a nice way that doesn't destroy their business. And So it's tough. So it's things like Canva are great. Do I like the democratization of creativity? Yes. Do I like that we have these gateway drugs into being creative? Yes. Do I like that it's allowing more people to be dangerous? Yes. But,
you're lying. You're like, yes. You're just like, no, they didn't went to art school.
But do I think that the things that we did, the way that I did things, is any less important than it was? No, not at all. I think if I still would say go to art school, get critiqued, push yourself, find the thing that you love, and try to blow it out of the water. Because I'll tell you what, Canva can do some stuff, but it can't make a next level thing. And that's what we should all be going for, is next level. Obviously, we maybe can't afford to go next level on every project. So, like I said, maybe you even start using Canva on things you don't have to. But don't lose sight that we need to get to that next level. You should always be trying to push whatever you do to that next level.
I mean, with this being all said, it's it is a tough call, because when you value your art, you value yourself against everybody else. And now you have to take extra pride in those 2%, going to art school, It's not anymore this is the 80%. It's maybe now the extra 5% bonus on versus other designer, because you have that little knowledge that is getting devalued because everybody's doing it, and it's really upsetting. And but this makes you more important now. This gets you closer to mastery than the other person who is missing out all on that. Because the new generation nowadays, they will be self-taught. They will do basically apps, and some of the apps cannot do the things that they need to do. Let's say in video editing, you go with CapCut, for example. It does not have audio synchronizing. It does not have great features for color correcting and adjusting differences in when the time of an edit gets. How do you explain it correctly? If a file gets really, really long, the audio sometimes runs a little bit faster or slower on different video formats, bit rates and all that stuff. And you don't know how to fix that in easy programs, because you're not aware that it is a problem. But if you have a master running into this problem, they know what to do. But the new sort of masters, they have no idea, so there's still a good value in old school, if that makes sense.
And what I would tell people too is don't become the person that gets caught in this Canva world, this templatized world, and you're like, this is where I'm going to park, I'm going to put my anchor here, and this is where I'm going to stay, this is a nice comfy place to live. It's not. I mean, I think the most powerful people, and this is what art school really taught me, is to just you've got to be a guerrilla warfare type of person. You've got to go at it and figure out how to approach these things quickly. If the thing breaks, you need to be able to switch gears, go to another thing. And you learn these things, like you said, such weird minutia, bit rates and codexes and color maps and all of these things that you had to learn because you had a need for it at the time. They were like, crap, this thing's broken. How do I fix it? And if you're in this templated world, you'll never have that, right? Because everything's in this beautiful bubble. But, then if you're ever needing to leave that bubble, and by the way, if you have to work with other creatives, they're not going to be impressed that you use Canva. So if you're a Canva designer, then, you may want to consider going to other tools before you join a creative team, because we're not going to be. I'm not going to. If you give me a portfolio full of Canva stuff, I may be less impressed, because unless you can really somehow push. Yet again, I'm sure there's people out there that use Canva and push it to the edge of what it could do. That I'd be really interested in seeing. But yeah, if I see one script font and a photo to the left and the block of color and stuff, I'm just not going to want to really work with you, because I'm already not valuing that much. I'm I could get my nephew to do this.
The sad part is, though, also imagine you did it by hand and you didn't use Canva, and somebody else is just
and it still looked like a Canva design, and that's it.
That is then the sad part, you put in, because there's work and pain behind it too, because you maybe designed something and you just copied somebody else and you did not even know. That's the saddest part,
Yeah, and that happens too. I think early on in my career, I think I did more of that without even knowing. Not I purposely did it, but yeah, I'd Google something and I would end up doing something very similar to it. So you're not wrong when you say that either. There's no right or wrong answer on any of this. That's the weird thing is like, there's people out there right now that are making good money with Canva and making probably solid designs. There's probably a ton of people right now using Canva and making terrible designs, templated designs, and not doing themselves a client any favors.
Yeah, so I know a guy, he's like specializing in like logos of names. He has a very kitschy style. Not the biggest fan of it, but I'm a fan of the hustle. He built a whole system around it. Each of the logos have like that glittery golden pink style. It's all the same. He wrote an ebook. He did the whole 9 yards. He's a designer, and he calls himself a designer. And all he does is the templatized design type thing. It doesn't really look in my eyes that good, but people are paying for it, so the market says he is, so he is. What is also like, as soon as he does something else, it's like, so it's a really weird thing, but you can build like a big empire on little systems in a weird way. So yeah, you can. For him, he's focused, he's found a niche, he's found a thing, he's become a boutique of selling these types of logos. And nothing against him on that, right? There's nothing against the hustle is real.
The hustle is real. And so I think, that's part of it too. I think that's hard is we all have to kind of define what we are. And even I'm still in that journey. I'm a web designer and brand strategist first and foremost, but like, I think it's we run into these things where we end up doing other things too. So it's like it's the same thing that like, do you give it to somebody else? Do you use a template or a tool to solve it, or do you? And now we have the third option in this last year or two of, do I use AI to do it for me? And so yeah, that's always going to be the weird balance there, right? I would say value people, value yourself above all of this. Just so even with the Canva discussion. Don't think of these things as Canva is the design thing. Like you still are the tool. You're still the design tool. So you can still make something bad or good with Canva. So
yeah, one of the things that I always say is like done is better than perfect. Sometimes we get hold up and like we don't get stuff done. But if you get moving and you get momentum, it's always good hiring the talent and doing the thing. But get started. That's what I always say.
Yeah. So use it as a gateway drug, everyone. Use it to get to creativity. But don't forget that there's creatives out there that can help you in this journey. Don't forget that while you're doing the bootstrap mentality now, get to the point where you start to share your mission with other people, and you'll see that it's going to get better looking without you even touching it.
Yeah, and you don't know what you know. That is like the biggest thing because like you said, we really do not, and we think we do. And the more you ingrain, like, we don't know anything, we don't know what is possible, then it's like, it's really hard to predict, like, what is, like, the outcome of whatever you're predicting, because you cannot know. There's thousands of ways to reach a goal, and we may be being able to imagine one way of doing it, or maybe two, or maybe three. But yeah, millions of ways to fail, a million ways to win. So
yeah, and with that being said, I would say it's all about what you learn on the journey. That's what gives me a lot of value, is that I've gone through a lot of experiences. I've had lots of things happen to me. So if you're young, that's what you're missing, is that you don't have that. It's not the tools necessarily, it's that experience. So get out there, get that messy experience.
Yeah, I love that. On that note, like it's closing time. So Sean, what is on your mind creatively right now?
Well, I'll be quick. I'll just say that right now I'm just things are going good in my life. I'm just getting a lot of creative stuff starting to kind of just pop up naturally. I'm just kind of letting off the accelerator a little bit, but helping other friends right now. I think like I kind of told you off camera, I'm helping like one of my friends become a developer, helping other friends kind of get into the game. People that are passionate. People are passionate, so that's I guess that's my one thing I want to kind of tell everyone out there. If there's someone in your life that's creative and doesn't believe in themselves, go pick them up right now. Go see how you can help them. How can you get them into the world?
Shake them till they believe in themselves.
Yeah, that's what Fitzay's done to me. He shakes me.
Yeah, the struggle is real.
But how about you, man? What's going on? What's on your mind?
a lot of like reviews. I need to fire up my YouTube channel. I'm doing work for other people, and I let myself slip away. I'm just like, oh, I was so close to the goal. The 1,000 subscribers on my other YouTube channel. I'm like, stopped it by like 920. And like, okay, let's do client work, and I've got lost in it. I'm just like, why did I get slower so soon before the goal? Kind of annoyed by that. Then I'm also like, kind of like, what do I want to focus on the channel? So basically like, let's crank the reviews, let's crank some content, and if people are being complicated, let them be complicated. Less client work, more myself, a little bit.
Well, I like that. Yeah. You can always shift gears, right? You can always just shift energy. I think that's the coolest thing. If something in your life isn't working creatively, there's some roadblocks. You can always just shift. Go to the next lane. What's the next thing?
Yeah, and that's where I'm like, okay, probably focusing more on like some more creative video stuff for myself. What I'm kind of excited about, but not sure what to focus on. The pleasures of ADHD.
Yeah. Well, that's cool though. That sounds fun. It sounds like a new process you can kind of dive into.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of stuff going on in school. Like you're now, you're like 3 months into being fully freelance, right? Like full-time freelance. So
we're still breathing.
Yeah. So I guess in 3 months, what's your experience been going fully freelance? If you had to summarize it quickly.
The first 2 months were like unbelievable, easy. And then the month where you had the most work, I had the most work canceled. So I'm just like, what is life trying to tell me? What could I have done better? But I'm not sure where to put my finger at, because like it's all external things that are getting taken away where I don't have any control about. Like I had like 3 people reaching out for weddings where I was supposed to be second cameraman. And client didn't have the budget, so they had to cut it down. And I'm like, that's a bummer. Then 3 other opportunities again, like the hair braiding one. And then the chamber one, and everything is like no budget. And I'm like, God damn, everything is canceling. And yeah, so I'm like, it's a really weird month.
Well, that happens, and and sometimes those things are a blessing, right? When they don't have a budget, you're like, cool, no work, no responsibility from you.
Or the other guy that I mentioned before the podcast. Oh my God, I'm just like, yeah, so I canceled probably now 2 of his things because he's just a nightmare, but I'm also like, I'm kind of should have just take it,
Well, it is that balance, right? I would be lying to you if I didn't say I didn't take some projects that I didn't like, but I just needed the money. But yeah, no, I mean, it's sometimes good though. I mean, it sounds like it's all external stuff. Money's in such a weird place, all over the place with everybody. So yeah, I think that's fine. If people are like, you're too expensive, I got to go, or it doesn't work out, so on the budget, I think that's great. I mean, it's like fine. We sell iPhones here. We're not selling little flip phone burners.
You want to buy some burner phones? This is my new side hustle.
Canva phones.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, I'm very positive about the future, but it's just like being self-employed is always like a roller coaster, like where you don't expect a roller coaster, that's gonna happen.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's nonstop in the freelance life. I'll tell you what, it doesn't stop that coaster. But yeah, keep it up, man. I'm so proud of you. So yeah, keeping full-time freelance.
Yeah, with that being said, everybody, thanks for listening to the podcast. Please let a comment down below, and be sure to subscribe and check out the Spotify account. Or Sean?
Yeah, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Show us some love, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good one.